Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the EDiscovery channel. We're rolling up on Thanksgiving here. We hope everybody's getting ready for a great holiday. And as always, I'm Tom O'Connor coming to you from New Orleans, Louisiana with my old partner and, well, I won't say that, but my partner in something. Mischief. As our dear friend Browning Marion used to say, you guys are dedicated to mischief.
Mischief.
So Rachi still in Tel Aviv?
Yeah, I mean, it's 78 degrees here, so why would I be anywhere on the East Coast or?
I didn't really want to hear that. Thank you very much.
Yeah, exactly. So
actually,
we're just
go ahead.
Nice day.
I was looking out. I was just looking out to see what it was doing. Yeah, it's in the 60s here, but it's overcast and windy. So
yeah, no hurricanes were good.
No, exactly, exactly. No clouds in the sky, no winds coming up from the Gulf, and we are really, really happy to have with us today the very puzzled-looking Henry Dicker. What are these guys talking about? This is the way it's going to be.
Why did I agree?
I'm puzzled because why they want to talk to me.
Well, first and foremost, where are you at, Henry? What's the weather report?
Slow news week. Well, Tom, as you can see, we got high pressure coming in from the north and low pressure coming in from the south. I am in Jersey City, New Jersey.
There we go.
The Garden State.
And as we were reminiscing just before this, not quite the down on its luck New Jersey City that it was 10, 12 years ago, huh?
Yeah, no, it's just down on me.
That was an old Janis Joplin song. That was a great song. Right? So Henry, if those of you who know him know, he's now the Senior VP of Client Engagement with, is it pronounced Lowers or Lowers?
It is pronounced Lowers. Lowers Risk Group, Lowers Forensics. Yeah.
Lowers Forensics International.
Yes, we are savoir-faire and everywhere. And basically enterprise risk management solutions. So
right.
Risk mitigation, loss prevention, forensic accounting, forensic financial forensics, fraud investigation, you name it, we're in it.
Good, cool. Good. Now, those of you who know Henry or have known him for any length of time will probably remember him as the title was the VP of Global Services at ALM. Is that correct, Henry?
Yeah, the business of law, running the business of law, consultancy for ALM.
Right. And as part of that, for a number of years, the man behind the curtain at Legal Tech New York, well, Legal Tech everywhere, but really Legal Tech New York. And,
just a shade under 2 decades.
Yes.
Wow.
Dealing with people like the late Gail O'Connor, who are, what do you mean I got to pay $4,000 to ship that stuff to Exhibit Hall? Come on, give me a break.
It's just paper.
Yeah.
They don't care.
They charge by the pound. Bring all the paper you want.
Right. In fact, they're happy
for you. Teamster on a loading dock. Yeah.
Right. And if you don't tell them that you don't have the paper going out, they're going to charge you the same amount as it was coming in.
That's right. That's right. Those were the good old days. So, Henry, we always start this off by saying, how did you get into this wacky business? I mean, tell us a little bit about you. We were talking earlier, and I didn't even know this, that you were born in Connecticut, but grew up in Annapolis, Maryland. So skipping a jump from Rocky's old stomping grounds and my stomping grounds for a little bit shorter period.
Yeah. Well, I was doing my my MBA at University of Miami and got involved with a consultancy company.
Right.
And
now let me interject just a second here. Didn't I hear a story once about you working briefly when you were there or shortly after you finished for
B.B. Rebozo,
a very famous person? Yeah, tell us a little about that if you can.
Oh gosh, well, now you're going to talk about my entire history. So
statute of limitations should be expired, right?
As some people will remember, or who've ever eaten with me or spent any time with me know that my family immigrated from Hungary and Russia, and we were deli owners. And so I grew up eating, hence a lot of you remember me at 500 plus pounds. So I truly loved cooking and food. And so my family sent me off to learn how to be in the restaurant business. So I started at the Culinary Institute of America, and quickly found out that I didn't actually want to cook the food. I just was very,
Yeah.
very happy eating it.
That was the wrong side of the counter, right?
Right, exactly. Too hot for a 500-pound guy. So I then went headed down south to Miami and did my undergrad at FIU, which you always talk about schools that you could get into back then, but now would never have you. I could never get into FIU or to the University of Miami now, but I got involved with business and accounting, and then went and got my MBA, and then consequently went to work for a consultancy firm. And they revolved around hospitality, hotels and restaurants, of course. And my first posting was the development of Fisher Island, which now is an incredible and amazing, very, very high-end neighbor island off of Miami Beach, literally off of Miami Beach. When they put Governor's Cut in, which is where the cruise ships go in and out, they cut off the very, very tip, almost like a moil when you're at your
I was going to say that.
right, to bring it full circle. They did the bris, and hence Fisher Island started, and that's the Vanderbilts had a compound there, and then consequently was bought by a development company headed up by Bibi Rebozo, who we'll talk about a self-made man, immigrated from Cuba and became literally owned almost all of Key Biscayne. So I went to work for him. His best friend was Richard Nixon and Sir Freddie Laker and Jose Ferrer. And it was a dream job. I mean, I was really working for a consultancy firm, but BB was a great guy. And he was like, come live on the island with me. And I was going, I was just out of college. And so
heady stuff for a college graduate, right? Yeah.
Live on an island in the Vanderbilt mansion. Sure, why not?
I'll do that. Yeah.
And I used to just sit there and cook for him and all the, the people who would come in to be financiers of the project. So it was a good time. And there I met, like a lot of consultants, you either go and work for them full time or you meet your next gig. And I met a gentleman named Oleg Grunstadt, who was a Greek shipping tycoon who was starting a cruise ship in San Diego, one going up to Alaska, one going down to Puerto Vallarta. And he took a shining to me and the way that I worked with people. And it's like, I want you to come work for me. Okay. Schlepped off to the Philippines and to Norway and built a ship and brought it across and worked there for a good portion of time. And then went to another consultancy firm that was building, which had a project. They were building something called the Javits Center. And the Javits Center, at the time was touted as the center of the universe. It was going to be the newest, brightest, bulb in conventions. I went to work for them. And back then, trade shows were put on by, like today, publishing companies. And one of our biggest clients was a publishing company, and they said, come work for us. I think you can do some work for us in conventions and trade shows. And that's how I eventually made it to ALM, started off running their trade shows and conventions, and then consequently moved to, again, business of law consultancy. As that product grew, we had incredible thought leadership. You can imagine the editorial. This was back when, ALM was, not that they're not now, mind you. I'm not saying anything about then and now, but they were the 800-pound gorilla. I mean, you didn't write something or read something that didn't somehow have the DNA of ALM on it. And I worked with brilliant people. I had no right whatsoever to be in the same room, but I ordered food well and I made them laugh, and so they tolerated me.
So going back a little bit first, before we really start digging into the legal side and your experiences in ALM, were you actually with the company when the Javits Center opened,
I was with Javits Center when it opened. I was there at the inception.
That's pretty cool.
And let me tell you, you want to hear stories. You think the Hilton was a bastion of inequities. Oh my God. Again, some of the greatest people in the world, but everybody had their own agendas back then, and you were dealing with all the wonderful, different, dysfunctional entities, and there were a lot of them.
And so you went from that to working with lawyers.
I don't want to be sleeping with the fishes. I'm happy.
Okay.
I'm happy to tell you that all
There were stories. Yeah.
there were definite stories. Disappearing 21-foot boats that no.
Yes.
Right. And they just one day they disappeared, and the next day they appeared again.
Magic.
Yep.
That's hard to believe.
Yeah.
Well, tell us about ALM. How about
Yeah.
Legal Tech New York? You got any stories you can tell there? I mean, you can't be afraid of lawyers. Come on.
No.
Well, let's hold on, rewind. So you go to ALM, you go to help them. Were you brought on specifically at the time to
I
run
was
the
so that's
show,
very
or-
that good question, Rocky. So Janet Felleman, who really was, I mean, everyone always says, oh, Henry Dicker, the architect of legal tech. Not really. I just did the remodel. Janet Felleman, whose husband was with oh gosh, what law firm was he with? Skadden. He was a litigator at Skadden. And he had said to Janet one day, I think that there's this whole thing about legal technology, all this mumbo jumbo about making copies of stuff and taking down words and all that. He said, I think there's something there. And Janet started this little tiny, event at the Hilton where a couple of these, of the true trailblazers of legal technology would meet, and they told two friends and they told two friends, and the next thing you know, they had something. And it got to the point where it got the attention of the National Law Journal or the New York Law Journal. I can't remember who it was who was running that ship. Remember, those were two different, very, very different entities. The National Law Journal and the New York Law Journal were fierce competitors, right? And then there was a shidduch, and they came together and everybody was happy. But Janet, had done it for 2 or some odd years, and she was ready to move on. And so she was interviewing for her replacement. And someone in the industry said, this guy, Henry Dicker, he's been running these international shows for years and years and years. Maybe you should talk to him. He might be the person that could take it, to honor your legacy. And she was absolutely wonderful, and it was determined by her, and then consequently by the greats like Jack Berkowitz and Kevin Vermeulen and Bill Pollack, that I was the right person to at least give a shot to doing it, and the rest is history. And I never regretted ever, not for one day. I loved working with those people and with ALM. I mean, to this day. But I will tell you this, I don't miss waking up on Thanksgiving saying, oh my God, legal tech is just around the freaking corner. Where am I going to find another $1 million of sponsorship dollars?
Right.
Toilet paper.
Vendors.
Who wants to?
Sponsor the toilet paper. Yeah. Well, yeah.
It's
So
on
I
your
have-
competition.
I have two stories that I want to see if you remember either of these. They were both at Legal Tech West. The first and older of the two was when it was in the was it the Century Plaza? It was down in the exhibit hall was down in the basement there. I used to love that going there. Yeah. And there was a break in the action, as always. Things were kind of thin in the exhibit hall as sessions were going on. And the guys at InData, the guys who had a company or a product called InVision, one of the earliest scanning and attach your images to a database, they had made Frisbees. I don't even remember, to look like big CDs, right, with the company name. And they started winging them.
Throw it right.
And guys were at both ends of the hall, and some, I forget if it was a lawyer, somebody comes walking around from behind a booth and kabing, clothesline envision Frisbee embedded in their upper dentures.
Right.
Well,
It's a good thing there were no injury attorneys around.
I don't know, Henry. Can you fill in?
No, we never had. We didn't go out for the personal injuries. That wasn't our our demographic. But I will tell you a great story at two good stories about West. Something always funny happened at the West Coast. God knows why.
Yeah.
And this wasn't really funny, but it was interesting. You remember the riots in LA. And just so happened they were going on at downtown LA during Legal Tech, and everything was being boarded up. And I'm sitting there, I'm watching TV, and I'm watching, what's going on. I'm like, oh my God.
And were you in the Staples Center then? Was that when it was
No,
downtown?
no. This is we're still at the Bonaventure.
Okay.
And I'm looking, and they're showing footage of burning wood, right? Wood just ablaze, and they go in on it, and it just happened to be the drayage area for all of the empty crates for Legal Tech. And sure enough, one of Lexus's crates was burning. It set it right on the side. And Jane Kimpen, I said, Jane, I'm not going to charge you for that branding. Because it was right there, right on national TV.
Great.
You couldn't pay for an opportunity that big.
No, it was too big. And then I remember the next day, we were trying to figure out, what we were going to do, because the next day it was really very, very light on the trade show floor. No one was coming down. And everyone completely understood, we had people on both sides of the aisle at Legal Tech were just pleasures to work with, whether they were my clients in the booth or my clients walking on the aisle. And so I got a couple carts from the Bonaventure, and we filled them with ice cream and souvenirs and T-shirts, and we just went up and down the aisle, and we were just giving them away. And people were almost like what we did, remember, in New Orleans, Tom, when we did right after 9/11, we did the show in New Orleans, and we ended up getting everybody drunk. We ended up doing hurricanes on the trade. Everyone was
Hurricanes for everyone.
Right. Everyone was too drunk to realize how miserable the show was.
Well, because it was very hard to get flights back then.
Yeah.
There was limited stuff.
Yeah.
Well, the second thing I remember was at the Bonaventure. It was West Coast, but it was down at the Bonnie by then, which I always enjoyed. That was a great hotel as well, great location. Yep. There was a great cigar shop only about 4 blocks away, right?
With the wooden Indian on the outside.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, I forgot.
I can't remember the name.
Yeah, but I know exactly.
Right. Well, it was another day where it was fairly slow, or during sessions, taking a break, and I ran into my old friend Sam Giberson, who was an attorney from Houston, a very tech-savvy guy. He was basically a solo, but he would ramp up real quick if he needed attorneys. But he had a high-tech office in Houston where he could just, he had open cabling, he could plug workstations in, and he could ramp stuff up like that. And very, very smart guy, but like me, a little bit of a Weisenheimer. And we were talking to each other, and we were walking down one of the aisles at Legal Tech, and Sam says something like, "Oh, look at that! Dweezilware is still here. Those guys are still in business. Oh man, I can't. That product sucks." He said, "What version are they on now? Like 27.2 and then we walk a couple more steps, and I go, "Oh, look, it's Acme Ware. Acme's still in business too." And we're basically like roasting everybody as we're walking down the aisle. We get to the end of the aisle, and we go around the corner to continue the constructive criticism. Right? And Henry's standing there in the middle of the aisle like this, tapping his foot, right? Like come on, from my old parochial school days, like, Sister Mary Perpetual Agony. I'm waiting for the ruler to come out. He goes, "You guys have got to get the blankety blank out of here."
You don't have anything good to say.
That's
don't
right.
Say anything.
Say it in the bar where everybody else complains.
We talk about all the funny stories, but the 9/11 had me remembering something. So, back in 9/11 days, in the 2001 days, we had 2 New York shows. We had the September show, and we had the January show. And the tragedy strikes, 9/11, and the show was like I don't know, it was always like the 24th or the 25th or the 26th of September, whatever it was that year. And we're like, what are we going to do? I mean, what are we going to do? And I got a call from Ross Codner. And Ross said, Henry, we got to do something. And what I want to do is I want to put together a triage, an area on the show floor for law firms who are displaced, to offer them services, technology services, copying service, whatever they need. And I'll do that. And I got to chill right now, honestly and truly, I got to chill right now.
Yeah.
The most selfless, right? The most selfless. I mean, here I was, the water was rising on me. I was popping Xanax and anything else I could, because I didn't know what I was going to do. I was polling, you know, what are we going to do? What do you want to do? Vendors, attendees. Well, we all know that we decided to do the show, and it really was, it was one of those kumbaya moments. It was one of the greatest moments that I can remember ever of being involved with anything, let alone legal tech. And, you know, Ross was a star. And I know that, you know, the Andys and the Jills and the Toms and everybody else, you know, helped him do that. But, and we're there in support of, but that's one of the fondest.
Yeah, he took the lead. He was the one who planted the flag and said, let's do something here. Yeah.
Yep.
That's great. I'd forgotten about that. That was wonderful. So what's your worst memory of legal tech that you can tell? Yeah.
Well, it was right after 9/11. And
I have a small list here.
All right.
My worst memory. Well, let's see. How about the day that the first day of legal tech in January was 56 degrees, and the next day of legal tech had 17 inches of snow on the ground.
Oh, yeah.
That was an interesting day.
Yeah,
in
that
the
was
world
rough.
of legal tech.
I remember that.
I always wondered. I mean, besides obviously the fact that, you know, middle of the winter, the costs were probably lower in terms of you know, all the venues and everything. But man, somehow or another, no matter when you guys scheduled legal tech, whether it was like the last week in January, first week in February, whenever it was guaranteed to be the coldest week in New York City of the entire year.
And the airports had closed down either the first day of or the last day of.
The last day
coming
of,
or
right,
going.
So people are panicking, and it was guaranteed.
But you know what? And this is a testament more to the people who I work with, the John Kleins and the Rob Huffys and these incredible professionals who, you know, I basically would go, do something, and they would do it. And then I looked like, you know, the star, the brains, right? The mayor of legal tech. Meanwhile, I was sitting drinking somewhere.
Right.
Not really. Eating, probably more like it. We, you know, there was always a twist and a turn. I can remember, again, revolving around 9/11. Because of 9/11, you'll remember that the Super Bowl they switched the days on Super Bowl and show what happened. Oh my God. We always steered away from Super Bowl for legal tech. And then in 2002, legal tech and the Super Bowl met head on. And so, like, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? Well, what did we do? We started the very, very first of a few Super Bowl parties. And that year it cost us a boatload of money to do it, but because I couldn't come up with a sponsorship quick enough to pay for it. But it was an event. And then every other year, everyone was like, oh, great, legal tech is going to happen around the Super Bowl. We can go and be a part of the Super Bowl party.
Right.
So, legal tech was just awesome.
Yeah,
no matter
it was
where
fun.
it was, Hong Kong, Singapore, you name it. We had a good time at every single one of them.
But I got to actually know you. You know, I met you first, of course, through Gail, who was in marketing and was always doing doing the show for somebody, different companies. And so I was introduced to you and met you a number of times. But Gail and I used to, I don't know if you know this, Rocky, but, you know, we would go to some of the parties at the end of the day, but because we didn't drink, we would just kind of go and glad hand and we'd sneak out, and we'd end up at that little deli across the street on the side street. I forget what the street was, but
53rd or 52nd, something like that.
That great little 24-hour joint that had,
eastbound.
you know, the typical New York all night deli. And we'd end up over there about 8 or 9 o'clock and have dinner over there and get some cheesecake to take back to the room and see what's on cable. Really taking advantage of partying in New York,
Exactly.
But of course, we'd get up at, the next morning and our heads wouldn't be the size of the screen. But I remember we rolled in there one night. I can't remember if you were already there, Henry, or you came in while we were there, but the place was empty.
Yeah.
Like, we're the only people there. And we sat and talked for a long time.
And that started a tradition where, those nights where I was like all keyed up, or if it was the night before the show opened and, we were going to be there until 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, I knew that I could go and walk outside and constantly sitting in that little window would be
There they are.
Tom and Gail.
Hunched over their matzo soup.
Right.
Yeah. We what's it called? I mean, so my first legal tech was actually 2000. The advantage.
What did your mom push you there at a baby?
So, I was going to say, the advantage was I was so young at the time.
High school. It was a senior trip in high school.
Yeah, I remember we had some college students there.
Right.
I didn't know that we didn't have the nursery school. I know you were the kid that was holding on to the rope with the 16 other others.
I was actually walking around with the bag trying to collect all the toys. That was being given away.
Said Alexis on the side.
But that's I would say I think legal tech was I credit legal tech for truly learning how to party and then be professional at 8 a.m. the next morning. Because until then, like I never had to put those two things together. But so I learned some great lessons back then from legal tech.
We had, legal tech was it was a serious thing. We had Malcolm Gladwell and Ted Olson and
absolutely.
We had some serious firepower.
Attorney generals
and in the early days it was the Jills and Brownings and Atkins of the world that Tom spoke almost every single, I can't remember a year or a legal tech that Tom didn't speak at. I mean, it was family. And in the early years, Rocky, you'll remember this, in 2000 and so on and so forth. I mean, we would do legal techs everywhere.
Yeah. Right.
Everywhere. Texas and here and there and Chicago and this place and that place. And during the season, much like the professional golf tour, you'd be like, okay, I'll see you in 2 weeks in in Atlanta,
Denver or
see you
Seattle or
So I was only lucky enough to go to West Coast. They never let me go to any of the smaller ones. I wasn't, I was still a junior pup then, and hadn't graduated to being allowed to travel to different places. But it was great. The being able to legal tech West Coast was always awesome. I went, I think 4 or 5 times, and until COVID, I hadn't missed a legal tech since 2000. So that's which I assume that, Henry, you're kind of, I would assume you're kind of happy that you did not have to deal with any of the COVID related, that must have been a disaster in terms of.
I have to tell you, it was a disaster for me. My life revolves around being face to face with a client. Right? I can't be a trusted advisor
if you're not there.
If you're not there, I could speak to people on Zoom, but if you have a client, that's okay. Yeah. But if you're trying to, to show just how your human capital, if you're a talent agent, which essentially I am, you can't do that over Zoom. So we all felt the pain, but oh my God, if you were reliant on that, I don't know how they did it. They did it, and kudos to legal tech and ALM and all the other, legal and all the other people involved in trade shows and conventions for faring through that. I don't think I think I was too old. I wouldn't have been able to make it. I don't
to adapt.
I'm not smart enough. No.
Yeah. It's not over. There's still, I know that the ABA Tech Show was decided to go hybrid. They've been talking about we're going to go live next year. Now it's we're going to do hybrid. And
Yeah, and I'm a firm believer either
do it or don't
do it.
Yeah, and Ilza has struggled with that last year, trying to do
hybrid is like multitasking. I say to people, I don't know how to multitask. I know how to give 50% of my attention to one thing and 50% to another. Actually, I'm being generous. 20% to one thing and 20% to the other, and 60% with bouncing a ball. And
I do think that legal tech this year is going to be a good test of what's going to actually happen, because I think as long as there's no major outbreak in mid-January, then people are really thinking that this is going to be the first time in our industry when people are getting together. Like there have been some smaller shows, some smaller things, but ILTA had 250 people, something like that. I think you're going to see a major presence at legal tech, and it'll be a good test to see how things fare, and whether from a marketing perspective people have been able to, is the value that you're getting from having 15 people from your company show up at legal tech, is that worth it? I think in general we would agree that yes, it has been in the past, and that it's worth it for people to get together like that. This is going to be a good test to see, because I think people aren't going to send so many, and they're going to be a little bit more hesitant coming out this year. So
I think so. Although I'll tell you, I was at the Georgetown Advanced EDiscovery Institute, which they did do live. They took that sort of advice, Henry, which is, we're going to do it. We're going to do it. We'll scale it down a little bit because we know we're not going to get the usual attendance, but it's in DC. So there's a lot of people who are close. They don't have to worry about travel budget and hotel and flying. So, but if there was a common theme from everybody there, vendors and attendees and speakers, it was, you going to New York? I'm going to New York. See you in New York. I think you're right, Rocky. New York's going to be a real bellwether, assuming there's no, they don't shut us down the way Austria is shutting down again now. That I think that will be a real good indication of how that business is going to go for the year, because definitely the people are there. And to your point, Henry, vendors don't want to pay the fees for a Zoom presence. They know exactly what you just said, which is, I can't sell my human capital in a Zoom room. Not that you don't want to do it, not that it can't be done, and you can do some educational session, but you're not going to get that oomph. You're not going to get that convention.
Yeah. And I have no skin in the game other than having a certain amount of empathy and want for all of my friends to do well, but I don't get a residual. But I would say, if I was a vendor right now, I would be saying, you know what, this is going to be the place. If there was ever, I used to always get upset when people would say, when I would say to someone, well, do you want to be at legal tech or do you need to be at legal tech? And I didn't want people to say, oh, I need to be at legal tech, because need is not a strategy. Want is a strategy, right? I often, and Tom will testify, I mean, I'm a people pleaser. Like, all I want is you to be happy, and I'm going to do whatever it is to make you happy. And I wanted people, when they were at legal tech, to be happy. Like, I'm happy that I'm here. I want to be here. I don't need to be here. I'm going to take a little bit of a back step, and I got to say that, for some of my vendor friends out there, you need to be at legal tech this year, because that will show the world more than ever, you're still out there, you're still viable, you're still important. So
I'm going to be at that little bodega a couple of nights, Henry, and I fully expect to see you walk in the door.
Never, no, not. You don't see me.
No,
you don't see me at legal tech now. No.
Oh,
no,
come on.
No, because I, unlike the need and want, I don't want to be at legal tech, and I don't need to be at legal tech.
Right.
Nothing good would come about me being there on either. They'll do just fine without me.
But you can join us at the Carnegie Club.
Well, the Carnegie Club.
Yeah.
Now,
So
can
yeah.
you still smoke at the Carnegie? My great the guy who used to run events for Carnegie Club, who ran Carnegie and Cipriani and all those, and the Roosevelt upstairs.
Right.
He's since left, so I don't have my locker.
you don't have your contact.
No locker? No.
I had to clear my locker out, but I wasn't in the city anymore anyway. So
Yeah. Well,
I'm happy.
Rocky
here.
and I and his brother and our group has gotten larger every year.
Yeah.
We had to
Well,
like
I
a
will
little-
tell you this: if there's going to be a night that you're there, maybe I
We
can
get
talk
you.
Tracy into letting me give me a hall pass and let me
There you go.
Yeah.
cross the Hudson.
Because, we're just going to be having cigars. There's not going to be any carousing
Yeah, it's-
involved.
Sounds
It's
good to
generally
me.
no shop talk, just everyone
Yeah,
having a good
yeah.
time.
Yeah,
So-
absolutely.
Yeah, but meanwhile, when can you get a group of kibitzers around when you don't do shop talk? I mean, it's just oh, how are the kids? Well, yeah, they're good, but let me tell you about this.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, we
but,
don't
yeah,
allow any marketing, that for sure.
Little Dweezil can code like there's no tomorrow. I'm
No,
telling you.
Yeah.
no
So-
selling from the podium.
So I've got a question, getting a little bit back onto the EDiscovery legal technology side. You were at the forefront of dealing with the vendors, dealing with the marketing, dealing with everything going on for 20 years, basically. What shifts did you see over those 20 years that like really made a difference, like that were like truly impactful to the industry?
Well, I think, in the very, very beginning, there was a lot of talking the talk. And then as things progressed, everybody was walking the walk. I mean, we all know the stories. These companies would come out and say that they're an e-discovery company. They had a bunch of copying machines. And that's
Right.
where they started. Right.
Yeah.
And then they would tell everybody, oh yeah, we're an e-discovery. We're an e-discovery. And then as soon as someone bit, they were like, all right, now we got to be an e-discovery. Okay, explain to me again how you spell e-discovery. Is it
E-dash.
Is there a hyphen in there?
Right.
Is there-
comma?
yeah.
Capitalize the D, lowercase d. I think that's what I saw. I saw that e-discovery, leading to predictive coding, leading to technology assisted review. I mean, the whole sort of EDRM, if I'm even remembering the acronym correctly. My God,
Right.
I don't know how I pulled that one out of my hat. But that whole sort of world of the evolution of the technology, and then people just getting really, really smart, really, really fast. And it was really tail wagging the dog. I mean, it was a lot of times it was these incredibly smart technologists telling lawyers why and how this was going to be helpful. No, I need to read the New York Law Journal on a piece of paper. No,
That's
you
right.
can actually read it on,
I
Wiki.
need a bait
Right?
stamp
It's-
on each
right.
and every page.
It's the tipping point for when, to use a Malcolm Gladwell, it's the tipping point of when theory becomes practical use, right? And I think we were there when that happened, when everybody was saying, this is what you could do. And then all of a sudden we're doing it.
That
right?
to me
So-
is really, Henry, you were there at a transitional moment. It's the point where Mike Arkfeld said once, this is where technology and the law actually did intersect. It wasn't just backroom stuff anymore. It really was, much like the Industrial Revolution or
Right.
the railroads after the
What was that
Civil
guy?
War.
He was the first keynote, my very first keynote, the guy from the UK, the paperless office. What was his name?
Oh,
What
yeah.
was his name? Tell me his name.
I can't remember because all I remember is Ross used to mock him all the time, Ross Codner.
Anyway,
it's the
he's
less
going to be.
paper office. There's no
Right.
paperless office.
But really, we're getting there.
There. Yeah.
It's darn close. It's darn close.
Three decades later, but talk about a forward thinker. I mean, this
Yeah.
guy was his last name began with an S. I feel so very, very, and he won't be listening, but certainly not to me.
He's going to write in.
But that was that, I mean, it happened, everybody
It wa-
was talking
it-
about it, and then all of a sudden, there it goes.
was a time of change, and every year from show to show, you could see, you could see the change. It wasn't
Do you
like we're
remember a
talking.
10X when they came up with that,
The mapper,
yeah? And I'm looking at them like,
air
hell,
traffic control,
right? What is
right.
going on here? And
Petri
now,
dish.
Yeah.
I mean, talk about ahead
Yeah.
of their, I mean, geez.
Way ahead. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So
And-
Henry,
And
real
through
quick.
the whole time, I was sitting there going, I have no idea what they're talking about. I just know that guy paid me $20,000. He paid me $20,000 for that spot.
So
Yep.
that was the good old days. But tell us, you seem like you really enjoy what you're doing
Oh
now,
God, I
with
love it.
Yeah.
not having
I
to
do.
deal with those headaches and pressures.
I do. And it's a different set of headaches and pressures.
Yeah, yeah.
And,
Not that it's, yeah.
and I'm still, a big part of my business is litigation, right? Expert witness, testimony for wrongful death calculations and things like that. So I'm still working with my clients, whether they be at Lewis Brisbois or whether they be at Ackerman or whether they be, I'm still working with that same group. I just now have more people and different things. I'm doing fraud investigation work. I still, we still have questions about needing e-discovery, and we have some partners in the industry that we utilize for that. That's, on our behalf. And I could still, speak somewhat on that, but it seems like I'm evolving, right? I'm dealing with more complex issues. Not that the issues that I had during legal tech weren't complex, but I'm more in the meat of it. But I'm still doing what I love, which is working with very, very smart people and putting them in touch with other people who are also smart and have a real need, and coming up with a solution. And that's really, what I love to do, is to come up with a solution, a way to get something accomplished that was a win-win for both sides of the V, no matter who it was.
Right.
So still doing what I
And-
love to do.
And
That's
smoke
awesome.
good cigars.
Yeah.
Occasionally, not as much as I used to, because I'm getting older and I can't tolerate it as much as
I hear you.
Yeah.
I hear you.
I mean, one cigar now, I would smoke 4 or 5 cigars a day.
Yeah. Yeah. No, those
Now,
days are
if I
gone.
do one a week, or even, God, when I mow the lawn, it's just, I just can't tolerate the same way.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
But that's awesome that you're doing stuff that you love, and that you're out there, even with everything going on with, Zoom and having to do it remotely, that you're still able to try to
And
bring people together.
and knock on wood, Rocky,
Yeah.
I don't have to do it right. I've been traveling nonstop since now more and more people are like, it started off with, well, we can't get anyone, no one can come to the office, but I'll meet you for a cup of coffee, meet you
Right.
for dinner, I'll meet you for lunch. And that's where I do my best work. Jerry
Yep.
Maguire said, just get me in the living room, just put me in a restaurant, and I can
Right.
sell, I can get anything accomplished. And now more and more, I'll be, as soon as Thanksgiving is over, I'm heading down to Houston and Dallas, where we're actually doing an in-firm presentation on forensics, fraud investigation, and how it works with different litigation practices. So we're going to be, it's going to be, it's business as usual.
game
And
back.
like you guys had said, as long as, the media doesn't decide that they need to sell another click or, another half 30-second commercial, they won't tell everyone the sky is falling.
Right. That's the hope.
Right.
So Tom, I think we're
That
at
time?
that point where I'm going to have to cut this one off. And
Obviously,
we'll
we
lead
could
into
talk
the
for
final
ages.
two- Right, the final 2 questions.
All right. So the
evening.
penultimate question is a
And
quick one, a
there's
short
a
one.
lot. There's a lot of money riding on this. Just so you know. So think through.
Do I have
And,
to pose it as a question, like on
No,
Jeopardy?
you've got to
No.
you got
What
to no,
is? Okay.
no, you've got to answer this question. Beatles or Stones?
Sorry, Beatles. I know.
All right, put it on my tab, Rocky. Put it on my tab.
Because I was never Beatles.
Good.
Yeah, right.
Good,
You don't
good,
have
good.
to explain. It's a beetle. That's it.
Meanwhile, it bad enough that I had to sit there and say beetle, like the insect beetles, or like
Yeah.
kidney stones. I don't
What's he
want kidney
talking about?
stones,
Right.
and I hate
Rocks,
beetles
right?
crawling on me. The alpaca in me was like kidney stones. That's
Yeah.
exactly what it was.
That's right.
Got one.
Oh, my back. I got to get out of this chair.
Need it, got it.
Okay, last question. If you could spend a day with anybody from our profession, anybody you've come across over the years, or even not come across, somebody who's living or deceased, and you could spend a day with them doing something that you wanted to do. It wouldn't have to be anything to do with our business. It could be
preferably nothing to do with our business.
yeah, it could be out on a boat fishing, or around a gun, whatever. Who would it be, and what would you do?
Well, everybody who knows me knows that, well, no matter what I'm going to do, it's going to be surrounding food. So it would actually be cooking for someone. And it's going to sound hokey, but it would be the Holy Trinity. It would be Browning, Ross, and Gale. And anyone else who wanted to join.
Yep.
That would be quite a group.
I will take.
They wouldn't eat very much. Well, Ross would.
Ross would
I'll
eat
take
funny.
table scraps from that one. So
Yeah. That would be I'd pay to see that dinner.
I would I would do a brisket on the on my pit boss, and it'd be nice to have them to talk to.
It sure would.
That would.
Well, Henry, it's great talking to you. With the COVID, I mean, we haven't seen each other in person in 2 years, right? I mean, I think
I'm trying to think. Was it like at the Gaylord when we were outside smoking a cigar? I can't even remember.
That cigar on the lawn at the Gaylord. That may, in fact, you're right. I think that might have been the last time I saw you.
Yeah. In fact, I was talking to Rob. Sorry, Rocky, I'm going over your time.
Nope.
I was talking to Rob this morning, and I was saying that we were going to be talking later, and he said, what was that dinner that you and I and Tom had? I said, oh, San Francisco prime rib.
I love it.
Give me a person, and I'll tell you the restaurant.
That's right. I can fill in the menu. Well, tell Rob I said hi. There's another person. I just miss so many people who, we had great relationships with. You forget that the old Bruce Springsteen song, the human touch. We can do business, but it's just not the same for those of us who are people.
Well, thanks to you guys for asking me here. It was a nice trip down memory lane.
There's some great memories.
It was a pleasure having you.
We'll get you for round 2 next year as I come up with some more stories.
All right. Listen, we didn't even scratch the surface.
Yeah, I know. We didn't go anywhere. We could just do Henry Dicker, the censored version.
Right.
Exactly.
Don't get me started on Toronto.
Wait.
We've got whole cities we haven't touched yet.
We can probably charge for the uncensored version.
There you go. If you don't want this, that kind of smacks of blackmail, doesn't it? You don't want this revealed to the public.
We'll call it the Prime membership.
That's right. Yes. That's right. Well, thanks again, Henry. Have a great Thanksgiving. Happy holidays. And
to you and yours and everyone out there.
Hope to see you someplace next year.
I hope so.
Happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
Happy Thanksgiving.
By the time this is released, it'll be post. I hope everyone had a great Thanksgiving.
Right. Zisen Pesach.
There you go. There you go.